So, okay, so this is the second part of chapter 11. We're going to start in the command line and we're going to talk about the exceptions on this chapter. So this is available to all the programs, and we can execute programs in a command line. We can actually use this one to execute a program inside another program. So we can do those kind of things. So there are commands. So every time you see a command in your the command line, that is a small program by itself. So the commands are programs. Now, when we put those things, especially if you're working in the back end, if you're working on the server side, most likely you're going to be working with the commands more than the GUI. That's what we generally do in the back end. So when we do that, then we can execute the program, and execution of the program can have some options. So I was working with network boxes. So if you just call a command, it would do something. And if you give it some option, then it would do something else. So I want to type in net stat, it would give me what is the status of my network. And then I would give it some option, then it would do some other things. Same name, it would do other things. So we have options, and depending on what my program is going to do, we can have multiple things in it. So to demonstrate this, your book is talking about this program, which to me is a very interesting program. Remember, cybersecurity is one of the hottest topics right now, and encryption, decryption, and those kind of things. So this is a starting point for you to take a look at how the cybersecurity basic stuff starts. And of course, it goes way up there. So that's another topic that's very hot these days. So for what we do for Java, we need few things in there in the command line. So one of the things that we're going to be looking at is the word Java. So when we put the word Java, it's going to say, okay, this is a Java thing that we want to do. And then we're going to put the program class in there. And then we're going to have some options. So in this program, I mean, we can have different examples. So I can have my input output file if I need them through here, or I can have some options that's going to tell me how is this going to happen. Now, when I pass this through my file, when I call this file, then I'm going to have something called args. You do have the same thing in C++. You do have the same thing in Python, that you can do the command line. In C++, because it's not dynamic, it's going to have a regular array. You're going to see argv and argc is going to tell you how many elements do you have. In here, because we are passing it as an array list, we don't need to know how many we have. We just know the size of our array list and we know how many we have. So Java is always that. The program name, the one that I'm executing, is right there. So the array list is going to start counting these things into my arrays. So my index 0 is going to have -v, and index 1 is going to give me the input data. So these two are going to be my argv inside my argv. So that means what? When I'm writing a program for command line, then I got to check to see what's coming into me so I can do something about it. Also, I have to tell the user if they are not putting enough stuff that I need. So if I need input file and output file, and the user only puts input file, then I'm going to have a problem. If I need input file and output file, and the user is giving me 3 files, I don't know what to do with it. So we're going to create a message to tell the user, this is the format that we want. And if anything goes wrong, we're going to exit our program and we're going to display that message. Generally, they call it usage. So the first step on the encryption that happened the scissors time was the idea of moving the characters few spaces. So in this case, I would have A going to be replaced with D. So I move it 3, A, B, C, D. Yeah. So that's the way it's going to happen. And of course, if we get to the end of it, we just come back to the beginning. So if I want to add the 3 to my Z, is going to come back and it's going to go to B also. So that's what the encrypted text is. So we're going to take this text, we're going to translate it to this new text, we're going to send this to somebody, and then they know about the decryption, so they have to decrypt the message to get the original message back. Of course, in my Python class, we put this message inside an image, and we send the image to somebody, and they can figure out how to unpack the message that we send them to the image. So we're going to have a program that we're going to use it for both encryption and decryption. So we're going to use it, this one program that's going to be used for encryption and decryption. So what's the difference between encryption and decryption in this case? So if I went to the right 3 spaces, 3 characters, then on my decryption, I have to go to the left. So the decryption versus the encryption is just the minus sign. So if I went from A to D, when I'm decrypting, I go from D to A. And then I have to check my boundaries. So if I fall off my A, if I'm going to the left, or if I'm going to the right, I fall off the Z, I have to figure out a way to handle that. So I can call this Java on the file with 2 things. That would be my input file and output file. So if somebody called the same file with 2 parameters, the first one is going to be my input file, the second one is going to be the output file. If they put it reverse, what's going to happen? Their input file is going to go away. That's what we talked about, and I have done that before. Now, if they add a minus D, that means I want to decrypt it. Now I'm going to take this input file and I'm going to decrypt it and I'm going to put it here. So if I don't have the option minus D for decryption, then I'm going to encrypt it. If I have minus D, that means I'm going to decrypt it. So the format that the user is going to be using this, either is going to be 2 elements or 3 elements. So my array list is going to have either 2 or 3. It cannot have more than that. It cannot have less than that. And if it has 3, one of them has to be minus D. So we're going to make this as generic as possible. And we're going to make it as, so these are the things that we have to think moving forward, that how we can use this in the future, how can we make it more user-friendly. So this minus D over here, it doesn't have to be right here. Minus D can be here, or maybe I put 2 files and then I forgot about my minus D. I want to put it at the end. So I'm not going to restrict it to have my minus D to be my first element. So my minus D can be any of these elements. But my files, I have to have 2 files. The first one is going to be my input file. The second one is going to be my output file. There is no options with that one. And I have to have exactly 2 files. So let's see how your book is accomplishing this. So this green one is, so in this case, we are using a default key of number 3. That's what we are using. It doesn't have to be 3, but we are using 3 for now. So we're going to get the key to the default number. So my key is 3. That means if I'm encrypting, I'm going to move to the right 3. If I'm decrypting, I'm going to move to the left 3. Now, I'm going to have my in file and out file. And I'm going to have number of command lines that we're going to have for the files. So how many files do I have? So we're going to start from the beginning. We're going to go to the lengths of the args. So it's going to be either 2 or 3. So we're going to go through this loop. We're going to check the I. So there is a possibility that the I, either one of them, can be starting with the negative. So if I see something is starting with negative, I assume that's going to be my minus D option. That means after minus, I have to have a D. That would be for my decryption. So I have to have both combination. That means I have to have minus, and I also have to have a D. Okay. So if it's not minus, then there is a possibility that's going to be my input file or output file. If it's a minus, it has to be D. Now, if it's a minus and it's not a D, then we're going to have a problem. If it's not a minus, I'm just going to go skip this whole part. Now, if it's not minus, I'm assuming this is going to be my file name. So I'm going to be looking at my files. So we're going to add 1 to the number of files. Remember, I have to have exactly 2 files. So if the file numbers are 1, that's going to be my input file. If my file is, oops, if it's 2, I guess I'm missing a slide over here. So if it's 2, then it's going to be my output file. So this can go 3 times or 2 times, and then we're going to be checking those things. Now, if I have my option minus, what I do, remember the key over here was 3, I'm just going to negate my number. So my 3 becomes minus 3. If it's not this condition, then I'm going to display a usage. Display usage is just going to display in the command line that how do I want to make this, how is this supposed to look like? So let me get to this one. Okay, so the usage is going to display what do we want to have. We want to have a file name with an option possibly and 2 other file names. And that's the format that we want. And if it's any other way, we cannot accept it. So what we need to do is we need to get our character for our encryption or decryption. We're going to get the character. We're going to use the ASCII table to change our character to a number. Then we can add the key that we have to it. Then we're going to bring it back to a character. So if I was on A, so if I had A would be 65 in ASCII table. So I would take the A, I would change it to 65, I would add the 3 to it, to make it 68, and then I change 68 to character, which is going to give me a D. So this plus over here is going to encrypt it. So if I had the decryption, then I would change this to minus. So let's say I have a D, and then I deduct 3 from it, then it's going to give me 65, then it's going to give me my A back. Of course, I have to have safeguard that if it goes outside of my A, so A is 65, so I have from 65 to 96 for capital A to capital Z, and then I have 97 to 120, 118, something like that. So if it goes, if I'm adding 3, I'm adding any kind of a key, if I go to whatever I had plus 26, then I have to reset it to 65. If I am at around 65 and I am deducting for decryption, so I have to check my boundaries. So if it's a 65, I have to go back to the other side. So that's what we have to consider. And this program then is going to be doing the command line for us for either encryption or decryption. So that's for the arguments. So we're going to be looking at what we're going to get for the args. Of course, we're going to throw the fun. So another thing that we have to check, if my file numbers are not exactly 2, then we cannot continue. So if I have a minus sign and I don't have a D after it, I cannot continue. We're going to display a message and we're going to get out of these. And if it is the file numbers are not exactly 2 for this program, it's not going to work. So we're going to display a usage and we're going to get out.